Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. I really love having conversations with people that at such a young age have such a high level of self-awareness. I find a lot of people in the film industry develop that because you sort of need to understand yourself and other people to do the job. That's what a lot of acting requires. And Talitha Bateman was such an amazing guest to have on the podcast. She was so open about her own mental health struggles and how she manages herself at, again, such a young age. And she's had a wealth of experience in the industry. She made her debut in 2013 in The Middle. She starred in So Be It, The Fifth Wave, Annabelle Creation, Geostorm, Love Simon, Countdown, and she starred in Away with Hilary Swank. I really enjoyed this episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And again, if you would like to learn more, you can find the Move Your Mind book at nickbracks.com/book. And if you'd like to join the Move Your Mind community, get behind the scenes access to the podcast, to a range of courses and learning tools, you can go to moveyourmind.me. Talitha, thank you so much for making the time to have a chat today. I've been messaging you back and forth, I think probably for like a year now or something. So
no, it has been.
It's been a while, and I've had a few like that, but it's like so good to like finally do it. So I appreciate it.
No, of course. I told my mom that today. She was at the store and she had my laptop and I was like, oh my God, if I don't make this, I'm gonna feel like the worst person in the world because I bailed on you so many times. And they've been actual reasons, but still I was like, I have to do this today. You don't understand.
She's just making excuses, bailing on me. No, I totally get it. And that's the thing. And I always feel bad as well because I'm like reaching out to you and other people that I've never met. And
right.
You're continually following up and you're like, God, this feels, awkward. I keep asking, but like, I get it. Everyone's busy and it's just, the nature of...
I feel like just before COVID too.
Yeah.
After, so it was just like a really crazy time and it was like overwhelming. I was like, oh God, I don't know if I have time for this now. So it just became like, very just overwhelming my life after that.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and we'll talk about, I guess, a bit of COVID probably in this. Not that I guess everyone's sick of talking about it, but it's like just such a part of life now, isn't it? But
I know, it's hard not to.
Hard not to. Yeah. It's just been like the, most bizarre time.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, before we go into all of that, I normally ask the guests just to give a bit of a background on themselves. So is that okay if you give like just a background on, I guess, where you've come from, how you basically got to where you are and what you're doing now?
Okay. I'll try and do it like in a nutshell.
Yeah, ideally. If you
19
can.
years. Okay, here we go.
Yep. Get it right. Make it succinct. Otherwise, we're going to cancel this whole interview.
So I grew up in a very small town with 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And then my sister started musical theater along with a good percentage of my other siblings. And then she really, really enjoyed it. And it became like her passion, and the other siblings kind of like grew out of it and weren't really interested. And she she pushed really hard to go to Los Angeles and start trying to act because it was something she was really interested in. And so my mom is she loves it when her kids have like a passion or something. She wants to make sure she pursues it the best she can. Like if I said I wanted to draw today and become an artist, she would go get me like 100 different sketchbooks and like nice art pencils. And so that's something she's very passionate about. So then she drove her to Los Angeles, like it was for 6 hours for us at the time. We were 6 hours away. So she drove like for an audition, then she would drive back. So it was 12 hours she would drive for one audition. And then she actually started booking, my sister did, and she got like really close on big roles. And so then we ended up moving to Los Angeles. Me, my 2 older brothers, my older sister, and my little brother Gabriel, who's now an actor as well. So then when we were in LA and you're meeting all kinds of actors and my sister and I were running sides, I started to be like, well, I really like this too, but I don't know how to bring it up. And then my mom was like, oh, do you want to give it a try? So me and my brother went to her agency, my sister's, and they were like, oh, we don't normally sign siblings, we don't know, but just read for us and we'll see. And then they ended up signing both of us that day, so we were really excited. And then I was doing commercials for like the first year, and then I don't know, I think I like went out for like So Be It, or one of my early roles, and then I just started booking like more dramatic roles, and then that is kind of what happened. I tried to really
Wow.
speed up my speech there.
You what? Sorry.
I tried to really speed up my speech. I was like, I have to get through this.
No, but no, it's super interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing it. I mean, it sounds like you've already done a lot for how young you are in this industry, but which is so cool. And I find it really interesting as well what you said about your mum being very open-minded about whatever you guys want to do, okay, like you can let's do it, let's like support you to try and explore and do that. And I know, in my own life and a lot of other people, parents, I probably come from a more traditional sort of
Yeah.
parenting background where they've only known one thing, and they've, all the stuff I did, I've gone into the entertainment industry in crazy areas, but they were like fighting me against it, saying, don't do it, and that, nothing against them. I've got amazing parents. And I know a lot of other people with that same problem. So I guess like having that, have you found that's been just such a, gift, having your mum, be able to be like that, give you guys that freedom to just explore and try and, find your path on what you want to do?
Yeah, I didn't realize how privileged that was at the time, or how like blessed I was, because it was just my mom, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like, yeah, she lets me do whatever I want. And we didn't have like any restrictions, I will say, or any rules growing up either. We were homeschooled, so it wasn't like we were with the wrong crowd or something,
Yeah.
but we were always like very free raised. Like, I know that sounds weird, but it was something she tried to implement in us. And I guess we did like have a rule where we weren't actually allowed technology at all. And I do prefer that now, but at the time I remember thinking, oh, but we didn't have TVs or phones growing up, so we didn't watch a lot of films. Like, I grew up on I Love Lucy and like these old like 1980 films and stuff. But
Yeah.
but then now I meet with people, and when I watched Away, actually, and I saw some of the culture in that, like Lou's character, it shows like how restrictive her parents were, and they were like, oh, you have to go, and you have one of three fields you can go into, and you don't have a choice, basically. And there are other people I know personally like that too, and I was like, what the heck? And I thought that was abnormal. I didn't know I was
Mm.
abnormal. And so it
Mm.
just, like, I came to my mom recently and I was like, wow, I'm actually really grateful that you allowed us to pursue whatever we wanted, and we had no boundaries. It was just like whatever we wanted to do. And she's just always been that way, because I think her family was similar, and it just made her like everything, like every art form, and it just made her
Mm.
want to go into different things. And she wouldn't get in trouble for, like, I don't know, not being disciplined in a way of like, oh, I like dance, but I don't like it anymore, I want to do this thing. And it wasn't like, no, you have to continue with dance. So it was just something she felt was important. And now, like, I'm so grateful for it.
I love that. Yeah, no, it's so cool. And like you said, the funny thing is, it was normalized for you, I guess, growing up in that environment. And then you start to sort of, meet other people and learn about how they've been raised, and you realize it's more abnormal to have parents like
Yeah.
yours or that upbringing. But it should be the opposite. It should be abnormal for it to be the other way around, where it's sort of this rigid, mindset. And it's a big part of why I'm even doing this podcast, to try and get these messages out there to people that it is okay to think differently or to want different things, or there's no set formula about how you have to go about things. And it yeah, like, because everyone's different and everyone responds in different ways to different things. And yeah, so I'm sure, like, with your having that, has that given you a lot more freedom, I guess? It's probably made all of you guys, more just comfortable in yourselves and with
Yeah.
expressing and being who you are. Have you seen that help with the acting? Because I know, like I got into acting at quite a late age, and the first thing my coach was telling me was, you've got to now, if you want to be able to really, because I was like so, scared of like getting it wrong or expressing myself. And he was like, you've got to unlearn 20 years of, what's been drummed into you. And it took such a long time. And I'm sort of getting, sort of gotten closer to that now. But I guess for you, have you found that gave you a lot more freedom to just be able to, express and try things and explore it?
I mean, I'm sure it has. I've actually never thought about that, but I'm sure subconsciously
Yeah.
it's been a part of why I like acting and like how I go into each character. I'm sure it has, but just in the level of like so many different tactics my parents have, probably just who I am as a person. So yeah, I mean, I think just like you said a second ago, it's each of my siblings too were so free thinkers. I think that's also because we were homeschooled. And I think that's really important because the school system kind of teaches kids to be like, oh, there's only one answer. There's only one system of doing this. If you find the answer, it still doesn't matter because you didn't do it the way we were trying to teach you. And it's like, oh, well, I guess we're not allowed to think outside of the box. That's like not allowed in any way. And my mom allowed us to always kind of come to our own conclusions, and then she'd be like, well, that is like a form of the answer, and that's interesting that you'd come to that conclusion. And so it always taught us that we were allowed to do that and we were allowed to have curiosity. But I feel like in the school system you're not allowed any sort of curiosity. It's like, oh no, there's a very specific way you have to do this. And so I feel like that's something that should be, I don't know, allowed more nowadays.
Oh, massively. Your mum sounds amazing. She sounds so cool.
You'd
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, please tell her. You tell your mum that I'm super impressed. We need more
I will.
mums like your mum. But what you're saying, and again, this is another big thing that I talk about with my mental health organization, where doing running a lot of programs in schools and trying to work with the message of what you were just saying there, where the school system, it's like very archaic, it's rigid. We're taught in a certain way, and that does work for some people, but not for everyone. And it is that thing where it's like, okay, if you don't learn or respond to the format we're giving you, then there's no other option, which doesn't work. Which, I mean, yeah, it's so cool with the homeschooling. Like, and a lot of people wouldn't be open to that as well. But I can completely get what you were saying with being homeschooled. Was that sort of just a decision your mum had made for you guys, I guess, early on, or was it because of some of these factors that you were?
Well, my mom and my dad were bullied in public school, and they both came from. My mom was in a Catholic public school, and they actually they paddled them at the time, and so it was just a terrible experience for her growing up, and she always had anxiety about schools, and so they both came to a conclusion that they were like, oh, we should homeschool them, and that obviously fell on my mom because my dad works 24/7. He was a firefighter, and then he went to become a paramedic, and those are both very busy jobs. But another aspect that I was thinking is my sister, my brother, my mom, and a couple of my other siblings, I think, have ADHD too. And so and I have OCD. And so not everyone does learn the same. Like you were saying, maybe it works for a good percentage of people, and that's great also. But for people who also have learning disabilities, and it's oh, you need to be on this medication to make you better. And the medication does help sometimes too, but it's not always completely effective. And so there are different methods you have to implement. You can't just say it's A or B, because that won't work for C for that type of person. And so I don't think that was an aspect of it because she didn't have kids yet, but it just, now I appreciate it because my sister just actually got diagnosed, and she's like, wow, I'm actually so grateful I didn't grow in a school. And she was like, I wasn't around people, I wasn't bullied for it, wasn't something I was super self-conscious about. And so she's found systems around it too, because my mom also grew up with ADHD. So it's just been, I don't know, I'm just feeling more and more grateful talking about this. But yeah,
Well,
it's been a
yeah,
cool thing that I've realized pretty recently, actually, just from
yeah.
meeting new people and talking with people about how they grew up.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look, thank you for being so open about all of that as well. Because I think it's like, and I've got OCD as well, and it caused me so many problems growing up because I didn't know why. My mind was operating like that. Didn't have the self awareness. I wasn't, taught um, how to understand it. It was again that thing of being put in this system and then
Yeah.
being like, hang on, why is my mind? I'm not thinking the same way as other people, and I don't know how to
Right.
control this. And it sort of manifested in, extreme behavior of like wanting to be an athlete and training 6 hours a day and doing all these different extreme things to try and, calm the mind down. But um, it goes back to what you're saying. It's like if we can all be open about these things and understand it and realize that there's so many different ways that people think and different ways to approach it, and there's ways to manage it. People can deal with it, and it helps so many people. And often, the people with that line of thinking, that different line of thinking actually makes you able to then be more, creative or do
Yeah.
things in like what you're doing, in acting and all those sort of areas. And I just think it's so great that you seem so comfortable just talking about these things. I've had, I don't know if you know Sarah Jeffrey. She's a Canadian actress that I interviewed on here. She's sort of the lead on Charmed and a few other
Oh,
shows. And she came on, but the reason I'm bringing that up is she sort of um, talked very openly about how she's got severe OCD and different things. And being, big in the industry, she was sort of told, don't talk about this stuff because it might ruin casting people might look at you differently or whatever. But she's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to
so
use my
unhealthy.
so unhealthy. And she's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
use my platform to talk about this. And it hasn't affected her career at all. And I think
Right.
that it's evolved enough that, people understand that it's normal to bloody, have whatever. But yeah, I just find it so, yeah, inspiring that, people like yourself can just be, comfortable enough. And again, how old, you're like 19 or
19.
20, like not,
19.
yeah, I mean, to have the level of like wisdom and self-awareness and just being, I mean, I've obviously don't know you. I'm like interviewing you for the first time, but you seem very comfortable in your own skin, which is like so cool at such a young age.
Well, I think it's cool that, I mean, it's not cool for you maybe, but that you have OCD, because I don't meet a lot of people with it, or I don't know. That's the thing about it, is it's not physical, so you can't tell what's going through someone's mind at all. And that's been like one of my biggest obstacles with it in some ways, is because some people are like, you don't have OCD, your room isn't even clean. And I'm like, oh my god, please shut up, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And so it's very, very frustrating. But yeah, I think that
exactly.
it's nice to meet people with OCD. I don't know. I feel like it's not as common.
Yeah, well, it just gives you, it makes it more relatable and makes you realize that it's something, something that people go through and can deal with.
Yeah.
And like you said, Sarah was saying the same thing when I interviewed her. She's really advocating for awareness about it because people will make those passing, we've been shown that OCD means, cleaning your hands several times or
Yeah.
like obsessively putting, wanting everything to be clean. But or,
Right.
or people will be like, "Oh, I'm having a bit of OCD today," but they don't realize what it actually means, and
Yeah.
it's because we're not educated on how to understand this stuff.
It's very true. Did
So yeah,
If you're comfortable, did you have any, like, I don't know, what were your, when you were little, like your compulsive things that you did?
yeah, no, I'm completely. I've just released my book where I've like talking about a lot of this stuff in it, but so I'm completely comfortable talking about it. But for me, it I remember it manifested in like I would have to like if I would have to like tap on things an even number of times. And it was always like 8 times. And it was this compulsion of like if I walk past a door, I'd have to tap on it 8 times and all these things to
Right.
assure me. But the most extreme thing it, sort of manifested into was I wanted to be a professional athlete and was competing in middle distance running. And as a 12-year-old, I started training six,
Wow.
7 hours a day. And this just compulsion that I could not explain, but I had to do it. And I felt like
Right.
if I didn't do it, my world would end, or there was no logic to it, but it was like just obsessiveness, and no amount of logic or reasoning could stop it. Which I understand it now when I look back, but like manifested in a lot of ways like that as well.
Well, it's just emotionally challenging too, because you didn't know at the time, and you just feel like I don't know. It's for me, it just feels like someone's taking over your mind. I used to think, because I was Christian, I used to think it was like demon possession. I was like, what is this thing? And I didn't want to talk about it with my mom or anyone. And my mom knew, because like you could tell the traits. But I was just like, because it feels like, I don't know, this weird, embarrassing thing. Because sometimes the thoughts too, you'll have like these thoughts that will pop in your mind. And so it's just, I always thought like there was something wrong with me. But now looking back, I'm like, oh God, that poor child.
Yeah,
Funny
it's
to think
like,
of it like
because you don't know at the time, but then you can sort of, and that's the thing, and that's why it needs to be talked about, because people then can learn, okay, you know what, like anything, this can be managed, and I've just got to learn to understand myself, and what are my triggers, and how do I, when I see that a behavior is, or a thought process is like going down, because it's like a vicious cycle, I guess. You get a thought in your mind, and then you focus on it, and the more power you give to it, and the more you go on that tangent, it becomes like this, it builds into this huge thing that then you're like, oh my God, what the hell? I'm like, my mind's like imploding now. And
no, exactly.
yeah. So it's like understanding that, isn't it?
I had this thing where, and this is a more common one, but every time I touched something, I would have to wash my hands. And so I got really bad
Right.
eczema. Like my hands were like flaky and gross looking, like a lizard scales. But it started with just like, I don't know, being like, we were taught, there are germs on things, you should go wash your hands. And then I was like, okay, oh, there are germs. And so then it was like, when I would type a letter in the keyboard when I was doing school, I would have to go wash my hands in between each one. And so it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it got like out of hand. But that's just an example of like, it can just take over. Like it'll start with something innocent and small, and then like for other people it'll be fine, but with people with OCD it just becomes like this it just takes over your mind.
No, absolutely. Exactly. It'll become something, like at the beginning, it's something so trivial that you're like, hang
Mhm.
on. Or before it happens, or when you look back later on, you're like,
Yeah,
how on earth was I obsessing about that? Like, what the
right.
hell? But and I always, like, the way I've learned to deal with it is like, in the moment, even, there's certain things that even now where I'll do, and my mind will be, I'll be like going crazy and trying to control it or get answers, and just, overwhelmed. And then I'll just remind myself, okay, you know what, I felt this way before. Nothing bad's ever happened when I felt this way. I'm just
Yeah.
going to do it anyway. And I'm going to accept that I feel bad right now, or overwhelmed. And then, that sort of already disarms it a little bit. And then and then you look back a day or two later and you're like, oh, that wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's why people are like, oh, you grow out of OCD. I don't think you really do. I think as you get older, you become more logical. And so
Yeah.
you realize that OCD isn't logical at all. And like, it's like, wait, why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? And you'll analyze more. And that way, and that's kind of what crushes it, honestly, because it is all psychological. And so if you're actually analyzing it, you're taking a second, you're thinking about it, then that's of course what's going to make, oh, I'm not going to obsess over that. That's stupid. I'm just not going to do it. But I don't think it ever really goes away. I think it can get like, mine will
Yeah.
worsen, I realize, when I'm like anxious about something. So then, or like, I don't know, it honestly, I feel like when I'm hungry sometimes, if I haven't like eaten all day or something, so I guess that leads to like anxiousness. And then I'll do something pretty compulsive, and I'm like, oh, why is this manifesting right now? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, definitely. And like, I love what you said there, because that applies to, to obviously anything in the realm of mental health, and just in life in general. We're sort of taught, again, going back to what you were talking about at the beginning, with how we're sort of educated and taught in school about this conditional thinking, and to be happy in life, we've got to do blah, 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 have a house, go to
Yep.
university, get a job, do all these things that are, and it's looking at it like there's this end point where we become happy. But that's not how life works. It's like, if you can't sort of find peace of mind right now, you're not going to find it when whatever else happens in the future. And whatever it is we're doing, it's like, it's about doing things daily and managing yourself. Because it's like saying, I want to exercise and lose weight and get healthy, and you go and do it, and then you achieve that goal, and then you're like, okay, you know what, like I've got to a certain level of fitness now. I'm happy with that. I never have to exercise again. Then you'll
Yeah.
like lose all of that work. It's like you have to do it, forever. It's like anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. That's why,
Uh,
like, I don't know, depression too, like just speaking on that a little bit. People are like, well, you can decide to be happy and whatever. And it's like, oh, dang, I never thought of that. I guess it'll go away now. So it's just like when you said mental health, I was like, yeah, that's true. It kind of applies to everything in your life. Like these things don't just disappear. It's something you have to consistently work against.
Totally.
But I agree with you.
Yep, exactly. It's like, yeah, obviously, if someone's like, oh, just try and you should just think positively. It's like, well, it's not
Right.
not quite that simple. Was that easy? I would have done that.
Right.
So how do you how do you manage the pressure, I guess, of like, I think when I first reached out to you, I had started watching Away. I love sci-fi, and I think that's where I saw it, and I was like, oh, I was like really impressed with your performance on it, and I was like reaching out to so many. I was like, I want to reach out and see if I can do an interview here as well. So yeah, I thought it was really great performance, and I loved the show. And how was that experience for you? And how was that overwhelming and daunting working with Hilary Swank? I mean, such a gigantic actress. I mean, it's crazy. Like, how was that for you?
It's so funny because I worked with like Nicolas Cage forever when I was little, and it's kind of like the same
Wow.
thing. I was just like, I don't know, kind of oblivious, I guess. Like I was like, oh, it's Nicolas Cage, but I've always viewed kind of like an anti-fame person.
Mm,
Like I
mm.
don't. It's not that I don't like success. It's like, oh, that's amazing. I'm happy for you, but it doesn't mean you're a good person, and it doesn't mean you're like a kind person in any way. And so I've always been like, oh, well, if I like working with them, it's because I like working with their character, and I mean character as a person, not their character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just never really think about like that aspect of them. Like I knew who she was, of course. So, like I'd seen Karate Kid and like I'd seen their stuff, and I thought she was obviously incredible. She had won like 2 Oscars, so I was excited to go into it knowing that she was going to be very talented. I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be so cool. But like the fame part of it, I don't know, I don't think I will ever get starstruck by anyone just because like it's just not something I think about. It's not something I value, I guess, as a person.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad was like, he was like, oh my God, it's Hilary Swank. And my mom too, actually, both of them, they were like so excited for me. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm just excited about this character and what we're going to do and stuff. And I was like, I don't know how to be like excited about like someone's fame. I don't know. It's weird. But it's funny because I get that question all the time. And then sometimes I'll be
I
like,
can
yeah, I
imagine.
was
Yeah.
so good. Like, I was like, whoa. But I don't know. Just if I'm being honest, it's not like something I'm like, I value that much, I guess.
Which again, it was like your. It's crazy the level of wisdom or the mindset that you have at your age as well, because like especially when and I guess it probably goes, a lot of it goes back to how you've grown up, like what you're talking about, because like in this day and age there's so many people that just want to be famous for the sake of being famous, not even for actually like doing anything.
Yeah.
And I guess social media spurred that, things like TikTok, where
Yeah.
people are putting up any video they can think of to hopefully just get attention from people. It's so
Yeah.
hard to, yeah, like hard to manage that at in this day and age. So I guess like for you, is it also I guess like you were saying, you sort of grew up not having a lot of technology. Is that something you don't spend a huge amount of time on as well, sort of social media and things like that?
I try not to, but I feel
Yeah.
like I got so bad during COVID, like because we were just indoors all the time. And then I was like, oh, I'll just go on Instagram. But I find that like it does affect my mental health a lot. And I don't know, I don't think it's just because like people always say comparison, and yeah, sure. I mean, I'm sure. But I think there's also like an aspect of you spend so much time on it. It's just like you're scrolling, you're not doing anything, you're not thinking, you're not having a conversation with someone you love. There's nothing you're really gaining from it other than just like the occasional meme that'll make you laugh or something, honestly. And
Yeah.
so I try not to, but I can't lie, I've been sucked into that void before. But I was just thinking about what you said about social media and TikTok, and I just had a conversation recently with a few people about this. But I have like this really stupid analogy. I was playing like Words with Friends, and so you play these stupid games and they give you coins, and that's supposed to be like your reward. And then you're using the coins to play the games. And so it's just this endless cycle. And I was like, well, what is the point of this game? Like, I was like, there's really nothing in it that's like that enjoyable. I don't know why I still play it. Like, it's kind of fun making the words, but it's really not that fun. And then I was
Yes.
thinking,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it's like for any sort of fame. I was like, one day people are like, if I win an Oscar, and it's like, well, what? It's like this trophy. Like, I don't really know. Like, what are you gonna do with it? You're gonna bring it home and put it in your closet. Like, what do you?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, what do you hope to gain from that? You think then you'll be like, oh, I'm happy, I'm successful. But weren't you successful for making that film and doing a great job in it, that you even like honored to go to that? It's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just shocks me. Like, I went to the MTV Awards, and this is probably not very PC, but I went there, and I remember like being so excited, like, because I was like, this is a huge award show, and my sister was with me, and we were seeing like all these incredible actors and famous people, and nothing against them or anything, but we were just like, wow. Like, there was one person who went up and was like, oh, like touching the fans' hands and like running across, and she was like doing it like and they were acting like she was a god, and it just like really like disturbed
Yeah.
me, because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know these fans. Like, I hit that category because I was like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know what they do. They could be doctors, they could be bus drivers, you know what I mean, they could have like a family of 4 that they're trying to feed or whatever. Like, I was like, and that just because you were successful in this field and you're famous means you're more valuable than them. Like, I don't know, it just weirded me out. It just made me like hate this whole industry sometimes. But I love acting, and that's all I want to do. I'm like, I don't give a crap if I win an Oscar. I really don't care. I don't give a crap if I win anything. I just like want to continue acting. And so that was just something I was thinking about the other day.
Thank you for sharing that. And like, I think I need you should take over my podcast. Like, you're like, I love your mind. You're like what people need to mentally become. Like, it's so refreshing, like hearing it from someone of your age and in the industry. It's like, it's yeah, it's like, and I agree with everything you're saying. It's like such a bizarre thing where it's like everyone, no matter what you're achieving, how famous, how rich, whatever, you're a person. Like, no
Yeah,
one's
exactly.
no one's better, no one's worse. It's just a person, and it's bizarre that we, look at it that way, and have these sort of views on people or worship certain people and
Right.
whatever. And it's just like it is like something that is, I think, a really sad part of how societies or Western society is structured, where it's like teaching people that you've got to strive for whatever it is so you can then be happy, or then have all of.
Yep.
Well, and it is, as you were saying before, with like the tokens or whatever that system was. It's the same sort of, like, it's like a drug. Like, if you're striving to, like you're saying, even if it is win an Oscar and be famous, okay, when I get that, that'll be enough. You get that, you're like, okay, I need more now. What's something bigger? I need something like
Right.
even, and it never ends. You can't be happy.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, yeah, it's so cool. It's like you just, love what you're doing and try and do that well and enjoy it. And that's it. It's like, life is simple. Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organisation, and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups, and you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. this group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events, we've got courses, we've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it, and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me.
Yeah, people were saying like when Billie Eilish won like 5 Grammys, people were like, "Oh, she's peaked. She's only down here, babe." Like people were saying that shit, and I was like, you have no clue what she's gonna do with the rest of her life. If she decided to never sing again, that doesn't mean she peaked because she won awards. I was like, it's so dumb. Wherever she gains, she couldn't even, maybe she didn't feel that happy that she won those. Maybe she didn't want the awards. You have like no clue. And just to say that because that is what you put your value in doesn't mean that that is what she does. And so it just bothered me just thinking about that. I was like, she just adopted a dog. I know way too much about Billie Eilish, but she did recently. And so I was like, that could be where she gets her happiness. And like, I don't know.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's just
exactly. Yeah. There's a million different things that, could make someone happy, and like what they're doing publicly is like one small part of their life, and people just hone in on that one thing. And I don't know, people, it's crazy that people have that view, or that, the way we're conditioned, people, and I've even experienced it on a small level. Like in Australia, I've got a bit of a profile, and, people have this perception where they're like, oh my, he's going to be this like really arrogant, whatever person. And then I meet them and like, oh my God, I can't believe you like that. I'm like, it's kind of weird that people get shocked if they, like, even how I am meeting you, I'm like, oh, this is so cool you like that, because so many people are wanting things for the wrong reason or whatever it is, but it shouldn't be a surprise. It should just be normal that, like you would solve so many problems in the world if everyone could just be taught to be just, have, it sounds cheesy, but, more self-love and being just comfortable with yourself. Then you don't, like we would solve a lot of problems if that could be happen on a big level.
And it's sad that people like expect you to be like rude to them or something. They don't expect like human decency because they're not successful or famous or something. And it just kind of shows where we are right now in society. And it's like, wow, you expected me to be rude to you and you were going to be okay with it. You still wanted to meet me. Like, that's just like really, really, really sad.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's crazy. It's so weird. It's a bizarre thing when you think about it properly. It's not natural. It's like, it goes against a lot of things. How did you find the whole COVID experience, and did that affect a lot of the work you were doing? How was that for you?
Well, it was like fine for like, I don't know, the first like 7 or 8 months, because like I love my family and we all like live together. Not all of us, but like I have 3 brothers here, my mom and my dad and my sister and her nieces come and hang out with us a lot too. So it's like a full house a lot. So it never felt like I get where people felt lonely. I didn't feel lonely. If anything, I felt like very crowded most of the time.
Yeah.
But work-wise, it was difficult because the industry was put on a hiatus. I'm used to being so busy. Yeah. And so it kind of forced me to look at my life, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I want to distract myself. So that was like my only thing where I was like, oh God, for the first time, like since I was like honestly 11 or 12, I've been like, I stopped, I was going. And then I was like, oh, so I had a breather, and that was maybe good. Like kind of, I mean, it probably in the future, I'll be like, oh, I'm glad I had that. But then like, it definitely just, because I feel like I've struggled with depression for a while. And so I was just like, I'm able to mask it by being busy and by acting because I love acting. But I was like, during that space, I was just like, oh, I do not want to deal with these problems. So it was it became hard towards like the end.
To not be just, and I guess you're on a pretty, an amazing projection at with your career, with where you're at. So having to pause and think about things would, be I guess it would be a difficult thing. But that's the thing. It's like sometimes healthy to be able to have that and
Right.
evaluate, and even be grateful for like, wow, this is really cool, what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's always difficult to have that sort of forced time out from everything. What do you love about acting? What would you say like is it that you love about it?
Um, gosh, like everything, because I feel like I did grow up with it.
Yeah,
So just like, and on like trailers, being on set just feels like a home to me because I
yeah,
traveled so much too. So hotels were my home, and I just love not being myself. I love being
yeah.
able to get different perspectives through the characters I play and different lives because it's so I get so much like enjoyment from like speaking differently and just like the way people write certain characters of mine and they have completely different lifestyles. Like I've played a
Mm,
girl who was like who had a mom with Down syndrome, and she was raised by her neighbor, and it's just completely different. And so it just makes me value my life a lot more in some ways too, because I'm like, oh wow, I'm so blessed. I'm just I don't realize until like I'll step away from something and I'll be like, wow, wow, wow. Just
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
grateful. But I
Uh,
also love like, sorry.
oh no, no, no! Please keep going, keep going. Yeah,
I love I love when I have like a scene partner that loves acting too, that's not just in it like again for success or whatever, because you can feel that people get tired over time. Like people who've been in the industry for a long period of time, it feels like they're phoning it in to a degree,
yeah,
and that kind of
yeah,
sucks because you're like it feels like one-sided. But then when
yeah,
someone is like so passionate about it and they're just there and they're present and then you create like art together, that's
yeah.
like my favorite. Just like because I'll rehearse the scene and I'll be like, all right, I think I've got a way I want to do it, and then I'll go and set and it'll just completely like alter how I pictured it, and it'll be like my favorite thing. And then when a director's
Mm.
like really invested too, so those are just like some of my favorite aspects.
Yeah, yeah, no, which is so cool. It's like, and that's the thing. It's like sort of, um, I guess when you're in a scene, it's like a meditative sort of thing. Like you're not thinking about anything else outside of that moment of what you're creating, and it's
Yeah,
and it's about and it becomes not about like what you're saying, not about fame or money or whatever. It's just about this pure thing of like trying to in each moment, how can I just
yeah,
be honest to what I'm trying to the message I'm trying to get across. and
right.
and and yeah, but it is a cool thing that you get to have that perspective about so many different walks of life, and then you can bring that back into your own life to help you evolve as well, which it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's such a cool thing. uh
yeah.
so yeah,
So,
thank you.
what do you like about it, if I can ask?
Yeah, so I got into it pretty late. Because I've had sort of a pretty varied career. I've like started different businesses, and I was initially doing modeling work. I was on different like TV shows in Australia, and then I started doing public speaking and sort of made a career out of that, and got into the acting originally because I was from how I'd grown up and different things I'd been through. I was incredibly shy and insecure and struggled to express myself. So I got into the acting initially to help with all of that, and then I fell in love with it. I was like, I was like, even if I never get work out of this, I
Right.
just want to do it because it was helping me with my speaking and understanding myself. And I was like, this is, and I've always been fascinated. It's like why I love this podcast. I like just love interviewing and learning about other people, and it helps you, and it's just so interesting. So I was like, this is so cool. I get to try and understand these different characters and not judge them, but look at why is this person behaving in that way, and how can I try and be put myself in their shoes, and and similar things to what you're saying. I just find um nothing is more, it's just like this pure thing of in a lot of work, it becomes about, even running my business, a lot of it's logistical and you're having to think about, financial things and how do I blah, blah, blah. Whereas acting, it's just like everything else evaporates and you're just there doing this thing for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
Which I love. But like I got to a point and like I was saying, I'm still quite early and I've had a break at the moment because I've been busy with other work, but I sort of had that break as well because I was getting to a point actually when I was living in Vancouver, and it was the first time I'd really thrown myself into auditioning. And I was sort of running my business while auditioning, 5, 6, 7 times a week. And I started sort of not enjoying it because I was like looking at it just purely on I want to land work and didn't really care about doing it just for, the enjoyment anymore. So I found it hard. Like, I think I've now got myself to a point where I'm like found that balance of being able to just enjoy it, not care if I do or don't get work or where it goes. But I found that's been something that I had to sort of navigate because it's hard when auditioning's hard and then sometimes you sent like this huge audition a day before and you've got to like be up all night learning it and it's like pressure. So it's like trying to navigate keeping the joy of actually doing it in amongst all of that. But anyway, that's like sort of what I like about acting. It's listening to you talking about it makes me want to get back into it. Get back to auditioning. Yeah.
Yeah, SAG-AFTRA paid me to do that.
What's that?
I said SAG-AFTRA paid me to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like therapy, doing it. You feel like on a high after it. It's like, so I do miss it. I can't wait to get back into it. So anyway, I was going to ask you before we sort of have a few like closing questions we ask everyone on who comes on, but do you have any sort of daily things that you do to keep you grounded that our listeners might be able to sort of take something out of as well? My name's Nick Bracks and I'm a storyteller who has dedicated my entire adult life to creating positive conversations around mental health. In recent years, discussions around mental health have become less taboo and entered the mainstream vernacular. I've delivered over 1,000 mental health seminars around the globe, including several TED Talks, and I believe we all have a story to tell. In my book, Move Your Mind, I cover my story and stories from people that inspire me, as well as insights from world-leading mental health experts. This book will help you to learn how to recognise mental health issues before they become a problem. Use your personal challenges as motivators, take ownership of your well-being, and create new daily habits that increase happiness and reduce stress. Wellness thing. What's that, sorry?
I said fight with my family.
Fight with, exactly. Like fight with your family. There you go. Anyone listening, if you're struggling, go yell
as much as you can.
Scream at your mum or dad or your siblings. Just fight. Yeah. It probably is healthy. You got to like communicate.
I don't know if it's healthy.
To a degree.
I guess
acting is probably one of them, I guess.
Definitely, that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if everyone has access to that, but
yeah,
something that I view as like, I don't know if it's like grounding. Yeah, I would say so. It's like going out in nature and just kind of being absorbed in something outside of yourself. So I feel like you can get really in your head and self-focused and always like just really absorbed within your own world that you don't always like appreciate the things around you. So I would say like, I don't know if that's like just going on a hike or just going, we have like a really pretty hiking trail that's not like hot and terrible around us and there's like a river in it. And so just like going and sitting outside and just listening to the sounds around you and like, I guess it's kind of like meditating or yoga and just like, I don't know, just being around something else and hearing like the world instead of like social media again or I don't know, some political show.
Yeah, no, I think it's like such an important one. I actually had this because I'm back in Vancouver at the moment and I like so happy here, but occasionally have these moments where I was like out in nature the other day and I was thinking, I was like, why am I trying to like achieve and do all these different things, which I want to do, but sometimes I do get caught up in putting that pressure on, being anxious or just, focusing so much on the work side of things. And I was like, hang on, this is like costing me nothing just to be in nature. And I don't think there's anything in the world that could actually make me happier. And I've got access, I can do it right now. Um, so it's like reminding yourself that the really important things that are going to make us happy in life, we can do right now. Or even if you go back to, like the acting, it's like, yeah, hopefully you end up having this huge career and do massive films and TV shows or whatever. But even if that didn't happen, you can still get the joy out of it by you can still do it on any level. Like, and if that's what you really enjoy, then you're able to do it even if you're not getting these huge roles. So it's simplifying and being like, hang on, which I think is a big problem, with how we're conditioned in society. A lot of people don't take the time to think, hang on, what are my values? What do I really care about? What makes me happy? Or the simple way to look at it is like, whatever you're doing for a career, do you enjoy the process of what you're doing day to day? If you don't, then you maybe should reevaluate things, because a lot of people are just grinding themselves into the ground because they want whatever that end product is, or money or whatever, but if you're not enjoying the process, like that's time's precious. We only have what's in front of us right now, so it's like so important. So yeah, anyway, I'm rambling there.
No, that's like definitely, I feel like a huge one. And another one I would say, maybe like my second one, is there's something, I don't know, really important to me about like just going to someone you care about. It doesn't have to be a sibling. I have lots of them, so that's easy for me. But in just trying to do something for someone else too, and just actually being like, hey, how are you? Instead of like always expecting people to reach out to you and to coordinate things, or even like, I don't know, hang out with someone and it's easy to talk about yourself. It's like the easiest thing you can do when you're with someone. So you have no clue like what's happening with them unless you ask.
Yes.
And so I just think it's important, like if they're going through something or something, like you don't have to, but buying them something or doing something nice for somebody else, because that is definitely grounding, and it allows you to like just realize, because this is someone you care about too, and like you can go to someone you don't too, I mean a stranger, but like someone you care about who you don't know like 100% what's going on in their life right now. And I think that's just something, if people did more, we would have a lot healthier relationships.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's such a good point. And, and not doing it with, you're doing it just because you genuinely want to try and be there for someone. You're not doing it because they don't owe you anything if you do it. It's like, I'm doing this just because I'm trying to reach. And if, like you said, if everyone had that mindset, imagine like just how much more, it would be such solve a lot of issues, and people would just be able to get that, because I think that's, again, for me, I've got like about three, probably four people that, like friends in my life that I can talk to at any, 24/7, and they can do the same to me. And we both know each other inside out. And, then just having that there and being able to like talk to them, ask how are you going with this, and then the same way around, it just helps massively being able to have that sounding board. So it's like, yeah, it's an important thing.
Okay.
So we finish every episode with these like 5 questions. So these can be, they don't have to be long answers. They're not going to be, anything too crazy, but yeah, just like whatever comes to mind, I guess. So it's sort of, something we've been doing since the beginning of it. But the first one is, what is the best childhood memory that comes to mind for you?
Gosh.
Or one of the best. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like this one that I always like think of whenever someone asks me this question. Because our family likes to reflect on a lot of stuff, and there's like a lot of bad moments, but like you can choose to focus on the ones that you're grateful for. And so this one would be, every summer we had like this huge swimming pool. So we would, and it would get to like 110, like where we grew up. So we would just go and we'd jump in the pool and we'd be swimming for hours. And then my dad would come out and he'd throw popsicles in the pool. And those are just like some of my all-time like favorite memories of just like, and we would like, and some of them would sink, so you'd have to like dive to the bottom and get your favorite one. And like pineapple, there was only like 2 in the box, so you always had to get that one. But that is definitely like one of my like all-time. I just remember being like so happy like at that time.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's so good. And that's why I love like asking that question as well. It's like goes back to like a gratitude
Yeah.
of like reminding yourself. Because like when you ask people, you can see like it brings them back into that moment when like,
Mm-hmm.
when you are reminding yourself of what you're grateful for, it like just makes you feel good and like, grounded. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, really cool. I like that. Um, what would you say is one of the biggest burdens on mental health in society today?
Oh, like we talked about before, I just feel like you're just not able to talk about it. You're not comfortable. And it's easier, I feel like, for people to talk about it when they're out of it. But when you're out of it, that's like you've already gotten through the battle. And so people who are still like soaked in whatever they're going through, it's just like really hard to be aware of it when you're close to someone and to know what to do. And so I feel like the best thing you can do is just have people just be more comfortable speaking up about it through social media too, because that's like the easiest way we communicate nowadays.
Yeah,
So, and that way maybe a parent can see that and be like, oh my gosh, my kids have all these symptoms, and so they can find a way to treat it and a way to deal with it in their household, so it doesn't have to be this hush hush subject. And then maybe we'll have less teen suicides to deal with if we were talking about these issues more.
totally. I know. I really love that answer, and I think we would have it's a real thing, and people there are suicides from people that are bullied on social media. It's a big issue, and there's a lot of issues that come from social media, and it's not going to go away. But at the same time, it's an amazing platform to use for positive things as well. Like we've got this tool here that we can get these messages out. And that's why I'm like got so much admiration for even you coming on here and being open, because a lot of people would look up to you, and if they hear you saying these messages, that's going to help people. And I think it's such an important thing. So it's a tool that we can use for good as well.
I
So,
agree.
yeah. Do you see things in mental health improving over the next sort of 5 or 10 years?
I really hope so.
Yeah.
I think it has improved, honestly, a lot. Like in the past couple years, maybe. I don't know. We're at like an all-time high for suicide, so maybe not. But
Mm.
I feel like at least my generation is a lot more like into putting things into categories and diagnosing things, which can be unhealthy, but I feel like it does more good than harm. And I hope that it leads to people actually dealing with their traumas and going to therapy more and finding out
Yeah.
why they feel that way and what they're dealing with. I hope that is just the beginning. It's a stepping stone for what's to come. That would be so cool, but it's impossible to tell because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next year, something else,
Exactly.
another virus, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but yeah, that's what COVID's probably taught us, that we who knows what's going to happen. So it's like sort of it's such an extreme thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two more questions here. What would you say is your personal definition of happiness?
Oh my gosh. Um, wow. Uh, I'm thinking of, I can't think of the word, but feeling like not greedy. I don't know what the word is for that. Like just feeling contentment, I would
Yep.
say. For me personally, just not feeling like there's this endless pit that needs to be like filled. Just feeling, looking at it like a moment in your life that you're like currently in, or like going to bed and thinking about your day and just feeling content, feeling
Yes.
like you're just at a place that you're so happy to be at. That is like my version of happiness. If I like one day and I'm going to bed or something and I feel content, then I just, that is like where I want to stay.
That's all you can ask for. I think that's the best answer because, the word happiness, it's like being attached to, achieving things or excitement or all these things that they're fleeting, like something amazing happens and it's like a drug. It's like, oh my God, this feels so good. And then it wears off. But
Right.
happiness really is exactly what you said. It's that peace of mind. If we
Yeah.
can, we're all going to have ups and downs every day, but underneath that, if we're at peace and just comfortable with who we are and where we're at and, what's happening in life, then you can sort of cope with most things. It's like, that's where you want to be.
If I could be like homeless and content today, I would do that. And not just be like rich and famous and whatever, and just be like content. Like, who would not want that? I don't know.
God, I still can't believe how you're like where your mind is at with how young you are. It's like this, yeah.
Thank you.
One of my favorite interviews. That's what I was going to say when you said that. Like, I've spent some time in like Africa and India, and it really drummed in what you're saying there because I like, and it's you go in these local villages where these people like it's sad, they've got like nothing, and for them, if they're able to just get fresh water and food and in their community and families just keep each other alive and like just survive, that's the best they can hope for. But you meet these people and you can see when you look in their eyes, they are so happy and present. And it's because they don't have, they don't have any other options. They can't sit there and think, hey, I wish that I wonder what career I want to do. Or I wonder if I want this, or I wish I was more famous, or I wish I could live here. It's like,
agreed.
Yeah, agreed. And it's like, because we've got too much choice. It's like, all they can think about is how do I look after the people I care about and, stay alive basically. And find joy within all of that. And, I think we can learn so much from that because if they can be happy with nothing, surely we can be happy with having a lot more stuff. Find that way to
tragically beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to be learned. So yeah, final question: what would you say is one of the most courageous things you've ever done? It's a 10-year anniversary of Under Bracks, and we've relaunched with the classic white pair. We've also got new styles coming out super soon. We're donating $1 from every pair to mental health, currently to 1 in 5. You can find all of this at www.underbracks.com.
God, I don't know if I'm a super courageous person.
I think there'd be heaps.
Maybe.
People don't like answering this one. Yeah, I need to change the last one, but I'm sure there's plenty.
Oh gosh, maybe I'm just like getting stuck. But this is a stupid one. But maybe like for the first time going down the freeway and I have my sister in the car and my nieces. Maybe that was a pretty stupidly courageous thing to do. I don't know. Or
Definitely.
like going for a night walk by myself as like a 5'1" girl. Maybe that was courageous. Yeah.
There you go. And I'm sure there's plenty of other ones. I mean, even from what you've told me in this interview, there's plenty. But yeah, look, I really, really appreciate you making the time to do it. I'm glad that, after 12 months of back and forth, we got there.
This was really enjoyable for me. This was really, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's been, same with me. I've been like really surprised with how, your view on things. And it's such an interesting story. And really appreciate how open you've been. And like I said, please tell your mum that I think she's amazing from what I've heard. We need more. We need to like replicate your mum and put more of her out into the world.
Just add my dad in there so I can show him this clip.
We need to clone your mum and dad and just replicate them in the world. We need more of both of them.
Okay.
I'll send that to them. And if people want to like look up, what you're doing and everything, is it best if they just go on your social media or your Instagram, or if they want to find out more about you? Yep.
Yeah. Whatever they want. Just my name. There we go.
I'll have a link in there. Name. Google the name. Well, Talitha, thank you again for doing it, and really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, Nick.
You too.
Hopefully
Thanks so
you'll
much.
get sleep this time.
I'll be having a big sleep this weekend. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to Talitha Bateman for joining me today for Move Your Mind. If you'd like to get the Move Your Mind book, you can go to nickbracks.com/book. And if you'd like to join the Move Your Mind community, you can go to moveyourmind.me.